A YouTuber by the name of Tick, who is generally looked at fairly positive and being well informed when it comes to military history, has created a video in which he claims that the Nazis were socialist and that National Socialism is the same thing as socialism like you would find in the Soviet Union. Of course, this idea is completely false and one that we as Marxists are constantly faced with, usually coming out of ANCAPs. Now, essentially, he reduces it to the same old logical fallacy that there was a strong state in Nazi Germany and there was a strong state in the Soviet Union, therefore they are the same thing. This is completely false. A government is an aspect of many systems, but just because they have a similar aspect in this regard does not make them the same system. In fact, this is even taken to its logical conclusion, or this line of thinking is taken to its logical conclusion by ANCAPs, who have even outright claimed that feudalism is socialism because there's a government in it, even though this makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Just because something has the same kind of aspect to it does not make it the same thing. I can travel from point A to point B in a car or a motorcycle. This does not mean that a car and a motorcycle are the same thing. Now, interestingly, in another moment, he completely contradicts himself and actually even defeats his own argument. He says, and rightfully so, that Nazi Germany did what they did to preserve capitalism. And the Soviet Union did what they did to abolish capitalism. One protected the capitalist class, the other abolished the capitalist class. Yet somehow, in his mind, it's the same thing because the government does it. I mean, this makes absolutely no sense. He's outright admitting that they had two different goals and two different philosophies behind them, but they're exactly the same thing because it's government. I mean, this is such a ridiculous non sequitur. It's odd to me that he didn't notice what he was saying when he made the argument. In another portion, he says there can be capitalism and socialism like the NEP. The problem is that this is false. When the NEP was implemented in the Soviet Union, it was just capitalist. That was the point. To go through a limited period of capitalism in order to build up the necessary productive forces to transition to socialism. At no point did the Soviet Union claim that they were socialist or that the economy was socialist while the NEP was going on. In fact, Vladimir Lenin, the progenitor of the NEP, basically said straight out that the NEP was capitalist. So you cannot have the two of them side by side. This is a common argument made by dingus who like to repeat the line often used by China, one country, two systems. However, this is absolutely false. You cannot have private property and the abolishment of private property side by side. It doesn't make sense. One is mutually exclusive of the other. And this is just one example of the difference between capitalism and socialism. You either have capitalists or you don't have capitalists. They don't sort of exist. Now, in another section, he even acknowledges the privatizations done by the Nazis, which is to his benefit, because a lot of the ANCAPs, libertarians, literally just ignore that this happened. They just stick with, oh, there's a state, therefore same thing, but pretend the privatizations that occurred under Nazi Germany just never took place. So now he's saying that things are being put towards the market, towards capitalists, towards private ownership, but somehow is still the same thing as the Soviet Union essentially state owning it under a socialist system. So once again, he undermines his own argument without realizing what he was saying. And then he proceeds to say a lot of things that are completely nonsensical, that the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK, is a socialist policy. Actually, it's a policy for a lot of countries. There are both capitalist arguments for a nationalized healthcare system as there are for a socialist system. It's not unique to socialism. Although you would be expected to have it in socialism, you do not necessarily have it in capitalism. In fact, a national health service or socialized medicine is far more efficient and more cost effective, and this is the argument that bourgeois economists actually do make. This is not limited to merely just something that socialism does. So again, he's falsely equating one with the other. And in fact, at one time he claims that at one time that Britain even was socialist, which is absolutely false. It never was. It just simply a nonsense. Now, to wrap up this video, he says in it that he wants to challenge ideas, yet I can name at least 5 or 10 people that he's booted from the comments section of his own video that was showing him how his video was in fact wrong. I mean, they came to me and showed me this video, and it said, you know, you got to respond to this. He's banning people in the comment section, not allowing them to answer because they are providing pure refutations of what it is that he's saying. So to finalize the video, Tick, just because there's a government in both of them does not mean that they are the same system. Just because there is a government in both does not make them one and the same. As I have clearly demonstrated, not only are they not the same thing, but you yourself in your own video undermine and debunk your own argument. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.